Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Guess who we've got back in the house? He decided to grace us with his presence today. Benji Naesen here for Stage 5 of the Giro d'Italia 2021 recap. A nailed-on sprint stage. It's from Modena to Cattolica, 177 Ks. Nothing really to tell you. To be frank, the longest straight road I've ever seen in a sort of Western European race for about 110 Ks, but the finale is not straight at all. In the last 2 kilometers, there's about 5 90-degree turns, very technical, lots of road furniture. We'll talk about it in more detail in a second. But yeah, there's supposed to be some wind, Benji. At what percentage, was there any time during this stage you thought, ooh, there could actually be echelon action?
Well, the thing is, I actually trusted Twitter a lot on this, too much, because when the stage started, I was hyped. I was thinking echelons everywhere according to my Twitter timeline. But I started watching the race and I saw no wind at all, no flags by the side of the road, standing straight up. So I lost my faith in my Twitter timeline pretty quickly after that. But still, I think that with these flat stages, echelons do make it great, but they also take away the possibility of watching an actual head-to-head sprint with the best sprinters at the end. And I think that's one of the things I also enjoy doing. The initial part of the stage might not be fun, but I do enjoy the sprinting phase of a flat stage like the one we had today. But that aside, let's take a look at the very important breakaway of the day. Tagliani in the breakaway and also Marengo. These two riders were in the breakaway for quite a bit. Took the first intermediate sprint, if I recall correctly. Nobody really cares who won that. And they got caught. They got caught pretty early because then we saw other people attacking from the peloton, including Simon Pelot. We had
why'd they get caught so early
in the break as well?
I feel like everyone had been told by their DS to watch out for wind coming out of these towns they'd gone through, and everyone was Ineos. You saw Ineos and Bahrain getting to the front. They I swear to God, they caught the break who had a 2-minute lead in 90 seconds. It may seem impossible, but I swear that happened with 100 Ks to go. And as Benji said, we were like, surely someone's going to try for the TV exposure for 80 Ks because we can't just have teams riding in a flat line at 34 Ks an hour. So, yeah, we got another. And then they were joined by Alexis Goujon in the last 20 Ks. But we'll skip forward. They were always in hand, 90 seconds. This was going to be a nailed-on sprint stage, as always. And we actually saw Lotto Soudal coming to the front early, like with 12, 13 Ks to go, keeping Ewan in the front 5 wheels. You'll remember, stage 2, the problem for Ewan was he had 2 lead-up men with him in the last 500 meters when he was 30 wheels back, which is inverted what you want. You'd want to have your lead-up men pretty much spent if there's other people leading it out and be in the top 5 wheels on that stage. So that was what they stuffed up on stage 2. We said, let Ewan do his thing, surf wheels. We've seen him do it before. Just get him in the top 10 wheels in the last kilometre. So they seem to be doing that, burning riders early. And then they got into like a city area where there are lots of corners and road furniture even before the last 2 Ks. And there were some crashes, Benji. I can't remember them all. There were so many. Who was the first to go down? Was it Sivakov?
Well, the first was, I think, TJ Van Garderen in a corner, but it wasn't too bad. But Sivakov as well had a crash. He looked to be in a bit more trouble than Van Garderen when he crashed. So I'm not sure Sivakov is going to be 100% okay after that crash. I think that we'll see tonight if he's got any injuries from it and if he ends up continuing tomorrow, because it didn't really look... I just heard Tosado on Twitter. I just heard Tosado on Twitter said that he's fearing a broken collarbone for Sivakov. So This is live breaking news, but unfortunately that sucks. Let's hope that it's not the case. Let's hope that he's able to continue. But this is exactly the way that his Tour de France last year started, with a crash and multiple crashes. And honestly, we'll talk about it after the stage thing, I think.
Hold that thought.
Yes. So another crash, unfortunately, was where... it looked like there was a bit of a traffic island where one of those guys with their yellow flag that they'd have to pay me $1 million to do that job because it's hella dangerous, proven by today, because Dombrowski ended up hitting the rider, the person that was doing that signaling on the traffic island. And while hitting that person, he ended up hitting Landa as well, and Landa went down as well. Dombrowski was bleeding from his nose. He was able to continue the race, but Landa was not looking too good. And I was a bit worried at the start because he wasn't moving too much.
He looked really hurt.
Yeah.
Really badly hurt.
Only thing I know about it is that he was brought to the hospital. We'll hear about it more after the race. He is not in this Giro d'Italia anymore, which is a big loss for the race. Let's be honest. He was amazing yesterday, and I would have loved to see him do more.
His DS, Franco Pelazzotti, says it's wrist or shoulder, so hopefully it's that's bad, and DNFing is bad, but I was worried it was back, vertebrae, or something worse. So hopefully, not ideal. Hopefully it is just a broken wrist or shoulder.
Exactly.
Because we thought it could have been much worse. He was lying there motionless on the ground. So thoughts to Landa. Benji and I are pretty upset. Well, I'm very upset because I think Landa's underrated. It wasn't his fault, really, and I thought he was going to do really well in this Giro. He had a magic day yesterday.
The thing is also a bit of a moment to think about the guy that was actually hit, the person on the traffic island, because I feel like he's probably overlooked here, as most of the people care about, Dombrovski's down, Landa's down, but I do care about that guy as well. He seemed to be able to stand up relatively quickly, so let's hope he's okay as well in that situation. But crashes aside, we had a hectic ride into the last kilometers, and I think it was, like you say, Ewan was not necessarily at the back in fighting position like last time in the preparation of the sprint. His team had him at the front of the race. He was in second wheel with a good 1.3 kilometers to go. So he was in that place. And we even saw him the moment that his rider was done and that another rider from another team was taking over. We saw that Ewan was actually choosing to drop back a tiny bit in the group because he wanted to get a better position. Because if you're literally in second wheel with a kilometer to go, you're going to have to do the lead out for the other people. This ain't going to work if you want to win the race. Yeah. So nice decision on that one, but I'll throw it to you for the last kilometer here.
As Benji said, so it was De Boist, I think, for Lotto, the last man, but he was pretty much done. If you go and watch the last 1,500 meters, which is maybe where you can start this stage if you're watching it back, De Boist is looking over his shoulder. Who's going to take it up? Because no one was really taking it up. There's a real power vacuum in the lead-outs. We don't have a quick-step train with 5 riders. Quebecer have maybe just Volscheid for Nizzolo. Viviani had Consoni. UAE Gaviria just has Milano. I'm not sure who the Alpecin lead-out is for Merlier, Benji. It wasn't De Bont, so apologies to that rider. But they only had one there for Merlier. So there's not these massive trains, just Os for Sagan. Eventually, De Boist and flicks Ewan. Ewan goes back, as Benji says, with a K to go. Os, I think, takes it up from far out. Not a high pace. He's got Alpecin's last lead-out man on his wheel, Milano, Sagan, Merlier, and then Ewan, after much fighting, slots in about 7th or 8th wheel, I think, in a pretty good position. The problem is you need to be aggressive and you need to be able to fight for a wheel to do what Ewan did at that point because no one wants to let him in. You've got the single file pace line, and you got Ewan sliding back on the right-hand side. The last man you want sliding into a wheel in front of you is Caleb Ewan. You say, get to the back. So he had to fight for that wheel, did so, got in there, and then oscillated out from 700 meters. He flicks through. Alpecin then leaded out to 435. And it's actually Milano again doesn't do the lead out for UAE. He kind of lets a wheel go, bit strange. Maybe he couldn't see Gaviria there. Meanwhile, Cofidis on the right-hand side. Yeah, exactly. Maybe he saw Gaviria wasn't on his wheel, Benji, like the other day. Cofidis on the right-hand side with Consoni. Hard lead out for Viviani on the right-hand side. Really good lead out, frankly. Great job. Like, this is in the last 300, 200. So I think there was a little rise at the end based on the camera angle. Nizzolo's been left on the wrong side, on the left-hand side. He has to come from deep, starts his sprint from 200, swings over to the right-hand side and kicks almost at the same time as Viviani. Merlier and Ewan have a fight for Viviani's wheel on the right-hand barrier. Ewan had 60 to 70% of the wheel. Merlier's closing in front of him. And we've seen Sagan lots of riders doing similar things. It's a fight for a wheel. And I'll throw it to Benji in a second to get an unbiased take. But Ewan basically pushes back, really fights for his position with his hip and hits Merlier. And it looks like it drops Merlier's chain off or something goes wrong with Merlier's bike, he's out of the sprint. Ewan gets the draft of Viviani on the right-hand side as he kicks. Nizzolo comes over, and so Ewan gets a second rider then to slipstream off into the last 100 meters. And if you see that happening, it was like that Tour de France win, Benji, where he like cannonballed around, but a little less spectacular today. And once he got clear air, we knew this was over, despite the camera angle being really bad live. But we knew because Ewan was going past Nizzolo. So Ewan makes up for the earlier stage. Any other details from that sprint that I've missed, Benji, or things that I've missed out, Groenewegen or Co or Chimolai, that you'd like to add?
I want to get back to a few things. First of all, Groenewegen didn't seem to be in contention because he actually lost, his sprint train, and he also was way too far to the back going into the last 400 meters. So I think that it was just not a good day when it comes to positioning for Dylan Groenewegen. I think he's still one of the faster people in the peloton, looking at what he did last time. And I think that's the reason that today he wasn't there. I think one thing I want to mention is going back to Milano, because I just rechecked while you were going off on your end. And when Milano was going out the front, he looks to the right and he sees the Cofidis train coming on his right. The Cofidis train with Gaviria in third wheel, just behind Viviani. And he goes to the right and accidentally blocks the Cofidis train that Gaviria's on. And Cofidis has to go around Milano, basically ruining Gaviria a tiny bit. So
Gaviria has to go around him. Gaviria doesn't get the nice slipstream off the right either. Yeah, good. That's a good call.
So I think that Milano probably didn't notice that Gaviria was there, but I think that the eye line was perfect to see Gaviria. But yeah, I wasn't there. I wasn't Milano in that situation. He could have just seen over him. And it does show again that the UAE sprint strategies are not really up to standards, and they need to get things sorted, because last time they had a very similar situation where Milano was a bit too far to the right doing his lead out, and Gaviria was trying to go for the small space next to Milano. If Milano was a bit more to the left, Gaviria might have been able to pass, but that wasn't the case. Then again, Gaviria risked it a lot to go through that small hole last time. But right here, it's a different situation where Milano just stopped his lead out, and he did so accidentally, blocking the line that Gaviria was on, which is not ideal, of course. So I think that Gaviria is going to be angry again, because I swear I heard
he didn't have the
last
legs
time.
either, to be honest. I think his legs
of course, but
yeah.
if you don't have the legs, you look for excuses. And
True. Can I ask your opinion? Yeah, I already mentioned it. Ewan and Merlier, that coming together, which seemed to ruin Merlier's sprint. I'm the Australian, you're the Belgian, so I'll throw it to your take first. I think what Ewan did seemed to be fine. No headbutt, no flared elbow, more just fighting for his position with the other guy coming in as well. I didn't see anything too wrong with it. Is that your take as well?
I agree. I think that's a bit of a mixed situation. I think that the thing that happens is you've got Viviani with his lead-out Consani ahead of him on the right. Ewan is passing Gaviria the moment that Milano goes to the back. Ewan is in the wheel of Viviani at that moment. Merlier tries to get the same wheel, but he is forced to the right even more because Sagan's closing in from the left. And that sandwich by Sagan, they were all fighting for the same wheel, so I'm not pointing any fingers here. But
dirty. No.
Like in this situation, that sandwich causes Merlier to have to move a bit to the right. It goes into Ewan. Ewan didn't really go to the left there, so I don't blame anyone here. Race situation, I'd say, on this situation. And I think Merlier just bad luck when it comes to his chain. And if you're fighting for the same wheel, there's gonna be one person that comes out of it having that wheel. It's basic science, I'd expect. And Ewan was the fastest to get into the wheel. Actually, I'd say Ewan was the fastest, but he's also the tiny guy that was able to basically hug the barrier next to Merlier and able to pass him still. While if that was anybody else, that might have actually been an accidental crash there. So I'd say that Ewan got away there a bit, lucky. And I hope that people notice that in this sprint, Ewan proves that if he is in a good situation, if he's in a position to be competitive, he's one of the two best sprinters in the world. And those two best sprinters are, in my opinion, still Sam Bennett and Caleb Ewan. I think that they've both got their skills. I think that Bennett is better at timing and intuition in the last kilometer. I think that Ewan has more acceleration. And Ewan is probably better at worming his way through through small gaps as well in sprints, stuff like that. So every single one of those two has qualities that the other doesn't have, and I think their top speed is pretty similar. So I love that 1v1 competition that we can always compare, because those are the two best sprinters right now. Now, you would say, well, Groenewegen was great before he had the injury and the suspension. Yeah, but I can't really calculate how good Groenewegen is, because his performances recently we have no data to base it on. So that's why, for me, those two riders are the two best sprinters, and I think you'll agree with that.
Yeah, I think whoever got onto Viviani's wheel was probably winning this sprint, because they would have got the draft and been coming out of it at the perfect time. Nizzolo didn't have it. He had to come out really early, and that's why I think he came second, even though he did a good sprint. Here's the top 10 results. Ewan first, Nizzolo second, Viviani third, Sagan fourth, Gaviria fifth, Moschetti sixth, Pasqualon seventh, Groenewegen eighth, Belletti ninth, Chimolai 10th. So I think Sagan, again, is showing that he doesn't have the speed to really be beating these guys head-to-head unless something super weird happens, but he can get into the right position, and then he's following their draft the entire way to the line without getting checked, and that allows him to consistently finish in the top 5 of these bunch sprints, pick up Ciclamino points as well. I would make a quick note before we move on to the preview of Stage 6 that I do think, I'd say I know, that sprints are extremely random events. You make one mistake in the last
Correct.
1 kilometer and your sprint is done. You follow the wrong wheel in a split-second decision, your day is done. If you're doing a mountain climb, 6 kilometer, 8% finish, if you follow the wrong wheel for a second, you can correct that. You can just move over to the side of the road and you can try and fix that. It might not be ideal, but it's fixable. If you make a mistake in a sprint, your sprint is done. We saw that in Shell de Prace with Bora. They went to the right-hand side. Their train got blocked, sprint over for them in Ackermann. And that's why I think the market significantly overcorrected for Ewan and Merlier before today's stage. I said last night I wouldn't pick between them, but I would look to see which one had better value. Much to my surprise, Merlier opened at $2.80. This is in corporate, so it'd be higher at Betfair. Ewan opened at $5, and I was surprised by that to see the difference between them. And I thought, because of one sprint, we now think Merlier is almost twice as likely to beat Ewan in a perfectly flat sprint based on what the market is saying. That was very surprising to me. I was like, because of one sprint, we're now discounting what Ewan can do. And we've seen in a second minute, we've seen Ewan and the Lotto lead out. Generally, when they do stuff up, like at UAE, they eventually do get it right. And without quick step here, they were able to get it right quicker. They went with the strategy of putting him in the right wheels with 1K to go. And that's why, I just think that was a big overcorrection, given that one sprint doesn't change who really is the best or the quickest. Yeah, go on, Benji.
Yeah, my advocate of the devil kind of reaction to that would be I'm expecting them to keep in mind that Ewan's positioning this season has been subpar the entire season, but you're right, it's an overcorrection because he's still one of the two best sprinters in the world. And if you're one of the two best sprinters in the world, and if you're in a good position, you are likely being very competitive in that sprint and perhaps winning. And I think we both had Ewan for this stage. I'm going to be honest, for me, it was just because I had Merlier the last time, so I wanted to pick someone else. So I don't really have a specific reason why I had Ewan today, but I'm glad he won. He's got one of his 3 stage wins that he wants this season, one in the Giro, one in the Tour, one in the Vuelta. He can now go home, but I guess he's going to stay for a few more days to get a second one, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, before we get on to the preview of tomorrow's stage, I want to mention our show partner, Lacole. If you want to get 20% off any Lacole kit during the Giro d'Italia, the code is that's for Twitter. The code is all caps LRCP20. As you can see it down below. The link is down below. There's also the McLaren collaboration with Lacole called Project Aero, which, the kit looks absolutely fire, and it's also designed from the ground up to make you go faster. They've got a speed suit as well, if you're interested in checking that out. There's a blog post about that from Lacole if you want to read up more about it. Tomorrow's stage, from Grotti di Frassassi to Ascoli Piceno through the San Giacomo climb. 161 Ks. It was an easy stage today, so the GC riders should be fresh, except for those crashes of Sivakov and Landa, which were tough to watch. The main first climb comes with 78 Ks done, the Forca di Gualdo, 10.5 Ks at 7.2%. That's a pretty serious climb. There's a small ridge line, rolling ridge line, then they do another 5 Ks, 5%, the Forca di Presta. Descent of about 40 kilometers, and then they start the last climb of the day. 15.5 Ks at 6% gradient, not up to altitude, it's up to 1100 meters. The final ramp is 5 Ks at 7.6%. When I look at the first main climb, Di Gualdo is got some steep bits at the start. Forca di Presta has got a bit of a steep bit at the end, but San Giacomo is fairly consistent, just gets a little bit steeper at the end, but doesn't seem to me to have any horrific pinches. I'm struggling to figure out what's going to happen on this stage, Benji, because I don't know, to be honest, whether it's break or GC, because it's not the hardest mountain stage you'll ever see.
Yeah, that's true, but on the other hand, it kind of reminds me of a bit of an Etna finish where it's not really a very steep climb, but it's a pretty long one and steady. So it reminds me of that. A ton of times it's been the breakaway, a ton of times it's been GC on that one. So it could go either way. I'm personally thinking that if it's a breakaway, it's only one or two riders left, I'd expect. But the thing is, if we think about who should pace on this stage, we know that in the current lead of GC, we've got Israel Startup Nation. Why would Israel pace on this?
Exposure.
Yeah, but let's be real. Exposure, but is it worth it? I don't agree. I think they should be in the break with someone and try again.
DeMarchi should be in the break again. Seriously. This stage is good for him to be in the break again.
I agree.
Do you know where Harm van Hoek is?
I do not know. I do not know where Harm van Hoek is. Probably somewhere in Italy. I think that I want to note that we should perhaps look at the possibilities of the follow-up of what Bahrain will be doing the next couple of weeks now that Landa is out of the race. It sucks talking about it already, but we kind of have to because that's what we do here. But if you look at the riders on that team, then Bilbao is probably new leader. He survived relatively well, if I recall correctly, yesterday. I think in that second group or something.
Caruso was good.
Yeah, true. Caruso was better. True. 143 down. Yeah. Bilbao 212 down. Those two might be going for GC now, but I would not expect Bahrain to put all their eggs in those baskets. I'd expect them to go into the break again. Trotnik will be in the break, I think, in one of the coming stages. Perhaps not tomorrow, but I do see them attacking a bit more. Yeah, good call. Genuinely. Good call. But
Mader's good climber. Is sure the sort of stage he should be getting the break. Harm van Hoek is 25 minutes back on GC. Benji, if he's in good condition, he was good on the Etna stage that Benji mentioned, which is a similar sort of stage. So he's a good option. Other riders, I don't know. It's tough for me to really say. Matteo Jorgensen is 23 minutes back. But yeah, do the GC teams, are they looking at this, Benji, now with Landa gone? Who wants to take it up and really gain time on this stage rather than just get through it unscathed?
I kind of don't expect that Ineos will start pacing before the final climb. It just doesn't really sound like something that needs to happen here. I think that the Koenig is not in a situation where they should do that. I don't think it's early enough in the race to decide to put Almeida in the break as a bit of a satellite rider or gain time again. I don't see that happening. I think that that it's too early for that. I think that Evenepoel already lost a bit of time, which means that on paper he fits more on these kind of climbs. But I also don't see them making the action tomorrow necessarily. No. So Carfi, I'd expect to wait until we've got Zoncolan to spread his wings on. I think that tons of them will be looking at their own time and preventing extra time loss and keeping themselves up there. And their Friday, I'm actually just going to go breakaway. I could be wrong here. I got to be honest. I'm not 100% knowing of this, but I am going to go for an Androni rider, Jefferson Alexander Cepeda. He's been losing time this entire Giro so far, perhaps for the second and third week, but I think it's a climb already now. him and Mollema will be riders that I'd be expecting in the coming 2 weeks to go in these kind of stage in the breakaway, perhaps in the bit tougher ones to try and get a stage win, and I expect both of them to do it. So I'm going for Cepeda here, but it could be a lot of people. Gotta be honest, it's pretty open race, this one.
I'm going with two Movistar riders, Pedrero and Ina Rubio. I like them for this stage as well. Matteo Badilatti for FDJ is a good option. Jorgensen I already mentioned. If Timon Ahrensman was here, I'd pick him, but he's not, I don't think. So it's a shame, Benji, because, Ciccone, Bardet, if they were not going for GC and got in the break, I'd be all over them. But Ciccone says he's not going for GC, but he's close on GC, and so he won't get the break. But, you look at this stage, those two in a break would be lethal. Mollema's lost time, so maybe he's an option. If you want my view on what Ineos should do, I would full send tomorrow. It gets steeper at the end, 8%. I think you can gain time with Bernal. He looked, if he has the legs and he feels good, the stage is not so long. Now they've lost Sivakov, but you look at that first climb, Narvaez, Castroviejo can do that climb. Ganna can do the lower slopes here, and Moscon as well, because it's not so steep at the start of this climb. And with Landa gone, who's maybe one of the better climbers now, I know they've lost Sivakov. He probably won't, even if he starts tomorrow, he's not going to be in great condition. I don't know. I would wanting to be testing Evenepoel and Almeida whenever you can, because they were found wanting the other day, and Bernal looked really good. And why not make hay while the sun is shining? That's my
What do
view.
you think about Bora? Because Buchmann lost time yesterday, a pretty significant amount, I think, 2 minutes, which means 45 seconds or something on the better climbers yesterday. He is not looking at the level that quite a few people are expecting, but it also wasn't his ideal climb. So do you expect them to still throw everything at him, or do you expect someone like Fabro or Groschartner to be in the breakaway a bit more in the coming week?
No, I don't expect them to be in the break. Fabro, definitely not. I wouldn't think. They usually keep him back for pacing. So I think, can they have any confidence that they're going to take it up and he's going to be able to then do anything is the problem. I mean, EF for Carthy seem to want to just wait for other teams to pace. That's why Benji and I are leaning a bit more towards break, because none of these other teams can confidently say, or need to at this point. We're so early in the first week. Okay, best case, what are you going to do? Pace and then attack, and then how much time you're going to gain on a climb like this with a stage that hasn't been that hard, so the people aren't really in that much of a glycogen deficit. It's just not that much of an incentive. So yeah, I'd say break 65-35. Gone.
Yeah, I'm actually going to add one name to the potential pot, and that's Jean Poussin, because Ajazer doesn't necessarily have riders here for GC, so he's on 25 minutes right now. Perfect to go in the breakaway, and we know that he can finish a stage like this. And even if he finishes together with someone, he'll beat them in the sprint. So I actually would dare to put him above my initial pick, who I completely forgot about, so I don't remember anymore.
You picked Cepeda, who I like. A good pick there as well. But that's our preview of the stage tomorrow. A difficult one to pick because it doesn't really look the hardest, to be honest. And when you look at the stage coming afterwards, because maybe if they've got a really hard stage afterwards, they're more likely to take it easy. It's not that difficult. So I don't know. It really depends on what Quickstep want to do. We've got a few teams licking their wounds after some crashes. Maybe Bahrain come out firing either in the break or on the final climb because of the Landa crash. Who knows? But it should be hopefully a bit more interesting than the one today. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to give the video a like down below. That definitely does help a lot. And I know even though it's a podcast, we do try to put a lot of effort into the YouTube video version of it. And if you're listening on podcast players, we love you too, because we're at 950 ratings. Or I think 955 star ratings. We're trying to get to 1,000 before the end of the Giro on podcast players. And Benji, if you're listening on YouTube players, is holding the animal thing, the green animal thing, wearing the Cole kit. I'm not sure what our sponsor agreement says about that, Benji. I have to talk to them. But
I need a baby kit, so if they can get that,
for the animal thing. All right, that's where we'll end it today. Enough shenanigans, and we'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.